Think about the first game you remember playing. Maybe you were sitting in front of an old television, holding a controller that felt a little too big for your hands. Maybe you were sitting at a family computer, waiting for a game to load while the fans inside the machine sounded like they were about to take off. Or maybe you were playing with friends, passing the controller around and arguing over whose turn it was. You probably don't remember every level. You probably don't remember every mechanic. What you remember are the moments. The first boss that made you panic. The level you kept getting lost in. The character you refused to stop playing as. The sound effect you haven't heard in years but somehow still recognize immediately. Now here's the interesting part. Some games give you memories. Other games change the way developers make games for years afterward. Today we're looking at 5 games that did exactly that. Let's talk about Doom. Before Doom, first-person games already existed. Wolfenstein 3D had already shown players what a fast first-person shooter could look like. But when Doom arrived, something changed. The game was faster, the levels were larger, the enemies were more aggressive, the weapons felt more immediate, and the atmosphere was completely different from anything most players had experienced before. You weren't walking through a realistic military battlefield. You were a space marine trapped on a planet filled with demons. The story was simple. The gameplay was not. You had to move quickly, watch your ammunition, search for keys, find hidden areas, and learn the layout of each level. And if you stood still for too long, the game usually found a way to punish you for it. Doom was released by id Software in 1993, and its influence spread incredibly quickly. The Strong National Museum of Play describes Doom as a landmark in the development and popularization of the first-person shooter. One of the clearest signs of its influence was the phrase people started using for other games: Doom clone. Think about how strange that is. People weren't simply saying, "This is another first-person shooter." They were saying, "This is like Doom." The name of one game had become a reference point for an entire style of game. And Doom's influence went beyond shooting. The game became closely associated with multiplayer, level design, and PC modification. Players could create their own maps and modifications, then share them with other people. That helped establish a culture where players didn't have to stop at the content the developers originally shipped. They could experiment with the game themselves. But when people remember Doom today, they don't always talk about the same things. One person remembers the shotgun. Someone else remembers the demons. Another person remembers getting completely lost in a level. Someone might remember playing the game on a family computer while trying to keep the volume low enough that their parents wouldn't notice. Those memories are personal. And that's part of what makes gaming history interesting. The historical evidence tells us Doom had enormous influence. The personal memories tell us why people still care about it. And that combination is what we're going to look at throughout this video. Because our next game changed an entirely different genre. Super Mario 64 wasn't the first 3D platformer. That's worth making clear. But it became one of the most important examples of how 3D platforming could work. Suddenly, Mario could run in almost any direction. You could control his speed. You could change direction while jumping. You could explore large environments. And for the first time, the camera itself became a major part of playing Mario. That sounds obvious today. Back then, it wasn't. In a 2D platformer, the game usually knows what you need to see. In a 3D game, the camera has to constantly decide where to look. If the camera is in the wrong place, even a simple jump becomes difficult. Super Mario 64 helped establish a way of thinking about 3D movement and camera control that later developers could build on. And yes, the camera could still drive you completely insane. Anyone who has played the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. But movement wasn't the only important part. The levels were designed around exploration. You didn't always enter a level with one straightforward path toward the finish. Instead, you entered an environment with several different objectives. You could search for stars. You could explore areas you'd already visited. You could try different jumps. You could look for secrets. You could simply run around and see what happened. Instead of constantly asking yourself, how do I finish this level? You started asking, what else is here? And then there was Peach's castle. You walk through the front doors, you look around, you see the paintings. Then you realize those paintings are entrances to entire worlds. You find a new room, you discover a secret, you open another door, and suddenly, the castle itself feels like part of the adventure. For a lot of players, those details became childhood memories. Maybe you remember racing Koopa the Quick. Maybe you remember trying to collect one particular star for hours. Maybe you remember the first time you entered Dire Docks. Or maybe you spent more time jumping around the castle than actually completing the game. Honestly, I wouldn't blame you. Super Mario 64 helped establish a design language for 3D platformers. Large environments, free movement, camera control, exploration, collectibles, multiple objectives. Games like Banjo-Kazooie, Spyro, Ratchet & Clank, and Jak and Daxter went in their own directions, but they entered a genre where players already understood many of these ideas. That's a major sign of influence. Now let's move forward to 2004. The internet is becoming a much bigger part of everyday life. Online gaming is growing, and MMORPGs are already well established. Games like Ultima Online and EverQuest had already shown what persistent online worlds could look like. Then Blizzard took the Warcraft universe and built something much bigger. World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft launched in November 2004. Blizzard didn't invent the MMORPG. Instead, the developers took ideas from earlier online role-playing games and brought them together in a way that was easier for a huge audience to understand. You had quests, you had levels, you had classes, you had dungeons, you had guilds, you had raids, you had professions, and most importantly, you had a massive world filled with other players. The systems were connected. You completed a quest, you gained experience, you became stronger, you reached another area, you found more quests, you met other players, you formed groups. Eventually, you entered a dungeon. Then you did the whole thing again, but players didn't all use the game in the same way. Some people loved questing. Some wanted better equipment. Some spent their time raiding. Some explored the world. Some focused on professions. And some probably spent several hours deciding which piece of armor looked best. World of Warcraft reached 12 million subscribers worldwide in October 2010. That number is difficult to comprehend. 12 million people were paying for access to the same persistent online game. But the number isn't the only reason World of Warcraft matters. Think about the memories people associate with the game. Your first character, your first guild, your first dungeon, your first raid, the first time someone invited you into a group, the first time you got communicates in a new zone. Maybe you remember staying up later than you planned because your friends were still online. Maybe you remember promising yourself you would play for 1 hour and then realizing 3 hours had disappeared. That kind of memory is different from remembering a single-player level. You weren't only remembering the game, you were remembering what you were doing with other people. That's one reason World of Warcraft became such an important reference point for MMORPG design. It showed how progression, exploration, social interaction, and structured group content could work together inside one persistent world. And if you're enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It helps support the channel, and there are plenty more gaming history stories coming. Minecraft. The first version of Minecraft appeared in 2009. The full release followed in 2011. Mojang describes Minecraft as an open-world sandbox game. And the sandbox idea is at the heart of why Minecraft became so influential. What happens when you give players a world and tools, then let them decide what they want to accomplish? The answers are almost endless. Some people build houses. Some build castles. Some create entire cities. Some explore caves. Some create complicated machines with redstone. Some play multiplayer minigames. Some spend hours collecting resources, and some spend an unreasonable amount of time building a staircase. The game gives you the systems. You decide what to do with them. Think about the first few minutes. You collect wood. You make tools. You collect stone. You make better tools. You search for resources. You build somewhere to survive the night. Then you start exploring. Maybe you find iron. Maybe you find diamonds. Maybe you discover a huge cave. Maybe you build something you never expected to build when you first started playing. And eventually, something interesting happens. The game stops telling you what your story should be. You decide. Your first house might look terrible. That's fine. Your first night might involve hiding inside a tiny dirt box because you have no idea what is outside. That's fine too. Then you get better. You build something bigger. You explore farther. You learn how the systems work. And eventually, you look around and realize you've spent months inside a world you helped create. That's where Minecraft's nostalgia gets interesting. People remember their first house, their first diamond, their first creeper, their first giant project, the friend who accidentally destroyed the base, the old multiplayer server, the world nobody wanted to delete. Minecraft also became a platform for player-created experiences. Servers, adventure maps, redstone machines, mini-games, mods, communities, entire virtual cities. Microsoft describes Minecraft as an open-world sandbox where players create a huge range of experiences. The developers provided the systems. Players created many of the goals. That idea helped shape how people thought about sandbox games and player-driven experiences. And now we reach our final game. A game famous for being difficult, sometimes brutally difficult. Dark Souls. Released in 2011, Dark Souls followed Demon's Souls. And we need to be precise here. From Software didn't invent difficult games. They didn't invent action RPGs. They didn't invent stamina systems. They didn't invent environmental storytelling. They didn't invent games where death has consequences. What Dark Souls did was combine several existing ideas into a formula that became recognizable enough for an entire category of games to be called Soulslikes. That is influence. The basic loop is straightforward. You enter an area, you learn the enemies, you fight, you die, you return. You recover your resources, you learn something. Then you try again. And sometimes you die again. But eventually you learn. And eventually you win. When you finally defeat the boss that has destroyed you 15 times, the game doesn't need to give you a speech about how impressive your achievement was. You already know. You remember every failed attempt. You remember the attack you kept getting hit by. You remember the moment you finally recognized the pattern. And then you get through it. That feeling became one of the defining parts of the Souls-like formula. The game teaches you through failure. Dark Souls also influenced how players approached storytelling. The game didn't always explain its world through long conversations. Instead, players had to pay attention, look at environments, read item descriptions, listen to dialogue, notice details, connect information, build their own understanding of the world. That became another recognizable part of the formula. Difficult combat, exploration, mystery, world design, death, learning, persistence. Games such as Neo, Lords of the Fallen, and Lies of P adopted different parts of this approach. But Dark Souls didn't invent every piece. The important part was the combination. Dark Souls helped turn that combination into a recognizable design philosophy. So now we've looked at 5 games: Doom, Super Mario 64, World of Warcraft, Minecraft, Dark Souls. And you might be wondering what these games actually have in common. After all, Doom is a shooter. Mario 64 is a platformer. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG. Minecraft is a sandbox. Dark Souls is an action RPG. They sound completely unrelated. But they all did something similar. They changed what players expected. Doom helped establish a language for the modern first-person shooter. Super Mario 64 helped establish a language for 3D platformers. World of Warcraft became a defining model for mainstream MMORPG design. Minecraft showed how a sandbox could give players systems and let them create their own goals. Dark Souls helped establish a recognizable formula for difficult action RPGs. None of these games appeared from nowhere. None invented every mechanic they used. Their influence came from timing, execution, and the way later developers built on their ideas. That's an important part of gaming history. Influence doesn't mean a game invented everything. It means the game gave other developers something worth building on. You see influence when another developer takes an idea and changes it. You see influence when players recognize a familiar structure. And you see influence when a game's name becomes shorthand for a style of game. Doom-like shooter, WoW-style MMORPG, Minecraft-style sandbox, Soulslike. Those phrases exist because players learned the language of these games. And that brings us back to nostalgia. You don't always remember every mechanic. You remember moments. The first time a Doom enemy appeared. The first time Mario moved through a 3D world. The first time you entered Azeroth. The first night you survived in Minecraft. The first boss you finally defeated in Dark Souls. Those memories are different for everyone. Some are funny, some are frustrating, some are completely ordinary. But years later, a sound effect, a screenshot, or even a familiar game mechanic might bring one of them back. You remember where you were. You remember who you played with. You remember what you were trying to do. And suddenly you're back there. That's one of the reasons gaming history matters. The mechanics are important. The sales numbers are important. The influence on other developers is important. But the memories matter too. Because a game can influence an industry while also becoming part of someone's childhood. That's what makes these games interesting. They're historical examples of game design, but they're also personal memories for millions of players. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe, leave your game-defining pick in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep playing.